Chapter 1. The Roommate with the Voice That Doesn't Know How to Shut Up. The last thing Max expected to ruin his Tuesday morning was a passive-aggressive post-it stuck to the fridge. "Don't forget to take the trash out on your last day." It was written in his ex-roommate's signature bubbly scrawl, the smiley face feeling more like a slap. Max crumpled the note with a dramatic sigh and tossed it into the already overflowing bin. He looked around the apartment, half empty now that Jake had moved out to live with his fiancée, leaving Max in the very adult position of having to interview strangers for the second bedroom. He hated strangers. He also hated change. And now his quiet, coffee-scented, cluttered little world was about to be invaded by someone who would inevitably suck. That was until Jasper walked in. They met 3 days later. Jasper was exactly on time, down to the second, and knocked like someone who had been trained in door etiquette. Max opened to find a man standing there in a dark green button-up, collar slightly askew, a laptop bag slung over one shoulder, and a stack of neatly stapled references in the other hand. He was tall, at least 6 foot, with warm bronze skin, curly dark hair pushed back with almost military precision, and cheekbones sharp enough to slice tension. His eyes were a soft brown but focused, measured, like he noticed everything and said nothing. Max blinked. You the guy from the university board?" "Jasper Lane," the man said, offering a hand. "English Lit Department. Adjunct professor. I brought muffins." Max raised an eyebrow. "Muffins?" "I read somewhere that bribing potential roommates with carbs increases your odds." Max smirked, despite himself, and stepped aside. "Okay, bribery accepted. Come in." The first 3 days were almost suspiciously perfect. Jasper was clean. Not obsessive, but clean. He washed dishes after he used them. He asked permission before rearranging the spice rack. He read quietly in the evenings, curled up on the worn armchair with a blanket over his knees like some kind of fictional boyfriend prototype. Max wasn't used to people like Jasper. People who smiled softly and meant it. People who made dinner for 2 without being asked. People who said things like, "I hope today was kind to you," as if that were a normal thing to say to a person. On the third night, Max found himself pretending to scroll on his laptop while actually watching Jasper on the couch. His dark hair had slipped from its tie, curling a little around his face. He'd fallen asleep over a book, cheek pressed to the open page. Max snorted softly and shook his head. He really needed to get out more. It was nearly 3 a.m. when Max woke up again. He wasn't sure why, just that something had pulled him from a dream and dropped him into silence. Or almost silence. There was a sound coming from across the apartment, soft, garbled. Max rubbed at his eyes and pushed his door open, squinting down the hall. Jasper's bedroom door was cracked just slightly, and the light from the street lamps outside glowed faintly through it. And then he heard it. Max. Max froze. The voice was low and quiet. "Don't look at me like that!" Jasper mumbled in his sleep, breath hitching like he was mid-dream. "You'll ruin me." Max stared at the door, half expecting it to swing open on its own. Was this some sort of elaborate prank? "Tomorrow," Jasper murmured. "I'll tell him, maybe. If he stays." Max backed up slowly, slipped into his room, and shut the door behind him with the same caution one might use around a sleeping bear. In the safety of the dark, he whispered to himself, "Okay, that was weird." His heart wouldn't stop thudding. He told himself it was just a dream. That Jasper probably knew another Max. That people talk nonsense in their sleep, right? Right. The next morning, Max said nothing. He watched Jasper pour cereal like nothing happened. Jasper smiled at him like usual, completely unaware. Max forced a laugh when Harper called later, dramatically wailing about her failed Tinder date. So he said he was a free spirit, and then asked if I believed in aliens. Like, immediately. What do you even say to that? You say, "I believe in ghosts, but not in second dates." And then you hang up, Max replied, grinning. "You're lucky," Harper sighed. "You live with a hot literature professor. I bet he quotes poetry in his sleep." Max nearly choked on his coffee. Harper gasped. "Wait, Max? Does he?" Max hesitated. "Well," he said slowly, "not poetry exactly." "Oh my God, what did he say?" "Nothing," Max said quickly. "Just mumbling, sleep talk gibberish." "You're lying, Max," Max sighed. "Fine, he might have said my name." Dead silence. Then Harper shrieked so loudly, Max had to yank the phone away from his ear. "He's in love with you." "He's not. I mean, he doesn't even know he's doing it. He's asleep." Harper dropped her voice into a fake, mysterious narrator tone. But what if that's when the truth comes out, Max? His subconscious is baring its soul and calling for you. You read too much romance. You edit wedding videos for a living. You're surrounded by love, and yet you run from it like it owes you rent. Bye, Harper. Mark my words, she called before he hung up. That man is confessing in his dreams. Just wait. Max didn't have to wait long. That night, unable to sleep, Max cracked open his door again. Not because he was being nosy, obviously. No, it was because he needed water. And okay, maybe a little nosy. Jasper's door was open again, wider this time. Max paused by the kitchen and leaned against the hallway wall. At first, nothing. Then, Max, Jasper mumbled. Max's pulse jumped. I think I'm falling in love with you, Max. Max blinked. His breath hitched. It wasn't flirty. It wasn't playful. It was raw, heartbroken, hopeful, real. He stood there, hand tightening around the fridge handle, unsure whether he was in a dream or a trap. Was Jasper serious? Or was Max just projecting every lonely part of himself onto someone who just happened to say the right name in his sleep? He stepped back into his room, pressed his palms to his face, and muttered, "You've officially lost it." But that night, when he finally curled into bed and shut his eyes, the words echoed again in his head. I think I'm falling in love with you, Max. And for the first time in years, Max wasn't sure if he wanted someone to stop loving him or keep doing it. Chapter 2. The boy in his dreams isn't me, right? Max wasn't the kind of person who noticed every little thing about the people around him. He liked to think of himself as observant but detached, emotionally efficient. Feelings were things he left for editing montages and proposal videos, not his own life. But ever since Jasper had whispered his name like a prayer in the middle of the night, Max had become aware. Painfully, skin-pricklingly aware. The way Jasper's hand would brush against his when they both reached for the kettle in the morning. The way his voice dropped half an octave when he spoke directly to Max. The way he always left exactly one sugar packet beside Max's mug, even when Max hadn't said he was out. Little things. Tiny gestures. Nothing, really. Except that now, every time it happened, Max's brain whispered, "Is it me? Or just the other Max, the one in his dreams?" He wanted to ask, but how do you even begin that conversation? Hey, so, when you sleep mumble confessions of love, you're talking about me, right? Just checking. Yeah. No. So instead, Max did what he did best. Overthought it and pretended not to. Okay, Harper said, stabbing her fork into a suspiciously green smoothie bowl. We need to talk about the hot professor. Max glanced around the tiny cafe, praying no one had overheard. Can you not say things like that in public? I'll say what I want. My love life is a wasteland. Let me live vicariously. Max rolled his eyes and stirred his coffee like it had done something wrong. There's nothing to talk about. He brings you coffee, he reads your editing notes out loud like it's Shakespeare, and he talks about you in his sleep. That's more romantic than 90% of rom-coms. Or he's dreaming about someone else with the same name. Harper paused. That's possible. But Max, come on. You said he smiled when he said your name. That's not random. That's soft. Max didn't say anything. Because yeah, okay, maybe it was soft, and maybe it made his chest feel like it was filling up with warm soda bubbles and nerves every time it happened. But what if he was wrong? Later that day, Max found himself pacing Jasper's favorite bookstore, killing time before their agreed-upon roommate movie night. He wasn't even sure what he was looking for. Distraction, maybe. Or evidence. In the corner of the shop, tucked between psychology and poetry, was a small rotating rack labeled Impulse Buys and Existential Crises. On it was a book, bright yellow, bold red lettering. How to Tell Your Crush You're a Coward. Max snorted. Subtle. He bought it on impulse, mostly for the irony. When he got home, Jasper was already there, standing in the kitchen in soft gray sweatpant, a fitted navy tee, sleeves rolled up, forearms unfairly gorgeous. Max tossed the book onto the counter. Thought this might help your sleep-talking problem. Jasper turned, spotted the title, and froze. His eyes flicked from the cover to Max's face. You bought that? Impulse buy. Max shrugged, trying to laugh it off. Figured it could be your new bedtime story. Jasper gave a strangled sort of laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. Right, funny. But he didn't take the book, didn't even move closer. Just stood there, suddenly very still, like he was holding something back. Max watched him, uncertain. You okay? Yeah, Jasper said too fast. Then quieter. Yeah, I just didn't think you'd actually pick it up. Max's smile faltered, the joke falling flat between them. He pivoted away, muttering something about needing to shower. It wasn't until much later, curled on opposite ends of the couch with a movie droning on, that Max realized Jasper had bought that book for him. The next night, it happened again. Max woke in the dark to the sound of Jasper's voice drifting through the apartment. Don't leave. The words came soft, broken. If I told him, he'd leave. Max's chest tightened. He sat up slowly, unable to stop himself this time. He tiptoed to the edge of Jasper's doorway and peeked in. Jasper was on his side, brow creased in distress, fingers twitching like he was reaching for something, or someone. If I told him, he murmured again, he'd never look at me the same. Max bit his lip hard enough to sting. He backed away, heart pounding. Maybe Jasper was dreaming about him. Maybe the boy in his dreams was Max. But the fear was real. The way Jasper sounded, desperate and afraid, was real. Max didn't want to get pulled into something if Jasper was only brave when unconscious, so he started doing what he did best, retreating. Over the next week, Max buried himself in work. Early mornings, late nights, hours behind his editing desk with noise-canceling headphones and coffee strong enough to peel paint. He texted Harper back late. He gave Jasper polite nods and non-committal, yeah, sure, responses. Jasper noticed. Of course he did. By Thursday, he was waiting in the hallway when Max got back. Hey, he said, voice calm but tight. Are you avoiding me? Max blinked. No, I've just been busy. Busy? Jasper repeated, watching him too closely. You skipped 3 movie nights. You didn't eat dinner at home once this week. You literally locked the bathroom door while brushing your teeth yesterday. That's not illegal, Max muttered. Jasper stepped closer. Did I do something wrong? Max's throat closed. No, he lied. You didn't. Jasper searched his face like he was trying to read a language he'd never been taught. Okay, if you say so. Max slipped past him without another word. But that night, the silence felt different. He couldn't hear Jasper's sleep-talking anymore. He almost missed it. Friday rolled in lazy and golden. Jasper suggested they try again. 1 movie, pizza, neutral ground. Max agreed with a hesitant nod. They curled on the couch with an old thriller and a pizza box balanced between them. It wasn't like before. There was space now, distance. Every movement felt rehearsed, every laugh delayed. Halfway through the movie, Max looked over and found Jasper sound asleep. He must have drifted off again, one arm thrown over his stomach, shirt riding up just slightly to reveal a strip of bronze skin. His lips parted, his lashes long against his cheeks, so different from the careful, quiet Jasper Max saw every day. Max watched him, wondering who he really was beneath all that calm. And then, softly, Max! Max's breath caught. Jasper's brows furrowed. You smell like home, Max blinked. The line hit harder than it should have. Because who says something like that? Who dreams of a person like their safety? Max didn't move. Didn't breathe. He just sat there, watching the man who somehow made sleep feel like a love letter. And when the credits rolled and the room filled with quiet music, Max realized one simple, terrifying truth. He wasn't avoiding Jasper because he didn't care. He was avoiding him because he did. Chapter 3, The Accidental Almost Kiss and a Game of Truth or Dare. Harper had 3 rules when it came to throwing a party. Bring snacks, bring chaos, and bring everyone. Max only realized what he'd agreed to after the doorbell rang for the 6th time, and their small apartment had turned into a swirling vortex of too many voices, clinking glasses, and people lounging on every available surface. Relax, Harper said, sweeping past him in a flowy dress that should have been illegal. This is good for you. You need socialization, and maybe a hookup. I have socialization, Max deadpanned, gesturing vaguely toward the fridge. His name is Jasper, and he refills the Brita. Then make out with Jasper, Harper tossed back before vanishing into the kitchen with a bottle of wine. Max sighed and turned, only to find Jasper in the hallway, watching him with a crooked smile. He wore a soft, loose cream shirt tucked halfway into jeans, sleeves rolled up, revealing the curve of his forearms. His curls were a little messier than usual, like he'd run his hands through them too many times. You okay? Jasper asked, holding out a beer. Max took it. Define okay, Jasper chuckled, tolerating the idea of people in your sacred space without flipping a table. Oh, Max said, feigning thought. Then I'm thriving. It started harmlessly enough. Drinking, snacks, someone playing awful synth pop on a Bluetooth speaker. Felix arrived late with a tiny bag of gourmet popcorn and absolutely no shame. I brought something to contribute, he said, tossing the bag on the counter. Don't ask how much it cost. You're wearing loafers with no socks, Harper noted. I assume your soul is for sale. Felix winked and made himself a cocktail that had far too many ingredients to be casual. Somewhere between Felix explaining why Oxford commas were the hill he'd die on and someone daring Harper to do a handstand in the hallway, she did. The suggestion came. Let's play Truth or Dare. A girl named Annika called, already 3 drinks in and leaning precariously against Jasper. Max felt his stomach twist. Truth or Dare was fun when you were 16 and had nothing to lose. At 25, surrounded by half-friends and flirty tension, it was a minefield. But somehow they ended up in a circle on the living room rug, lights dimmed, pizza boxes stacked like barricades. Max sat beside Jasper, too close and not close enough. The game started light. Truth, have you ever lied about liking a date? Dare, send a risky text to your ex. Laughter echoed around the room. Then it was Harper's turn. She grinned like a devil. Max groaned. You wouldn't. Oh, I would, she said sweetly. Truth or dare? He knew the truth might be worse. Dare. Her eyes glinted. I dare you to kiss Jasper. The room erupted in gasps and laughter. Max's throat went dry. Jasper stiffened beside him, but didn't speak. I mean, Harper added, trying to soften the blow, if you're both cool with it. It's fine, Jasper said suddenly, voice low. Calm. Too calm. Max turned to him. Their knees were already touching. Jasper looked him directly in the eye. There was a moment, brief, suspended, where everything faded. Max reached up, fingers brushing Jasper's jaw lightly, like asking a silent question. Jasper tilted forward just slightly, and their faces hovered inches apart. Max could feel his breath. Warm, steady. His heart thundered like it had something to prove. And then, just before contact, Jasper pulled back. We shouldn't, he said quietly. Not if it's not real. Silence, the kind that sucked all the air out of the room. Max blinked, then laughed, a little too loud. Wow. Okay. Rejected and humiliated. That's one for the highlight reel. People chuckled awkwardly. Someone quickly suggested another round. The moment passed like a paper boat caught in a storm. But Max didn't move. Not for a long time. Jasper didn't either. The party wound down eventually. People left in pairs or alone. Felix gave Max a long, meaningful look before disappearing into an Uber, and Harper hugged him tight without saying anything. The apartment felt too quiet after the noise. Too still. Jasper stood in the kitchen, washing glasses that didn't need washing. Max hovered by the counter, arms crossed, still buzzing with something he couldn't name. I'm sorry, Jasper said at last, not turning around. Max stared at his back, the strong lines of his shoulders, the way his voice sounded like regret tied with a bow. For what? Max said. For the game. For making it weird. For everything. Max swallowed. Something bitter rose in his throat. Why do you keep talking in your sleep about me? Jasper froze. The air turned heavy. Max's heart pounded. You say my name. You say you're falling for me. You say I smell like home. So what is it, Jasper? Am I just someone you dream about because I make good coffee? Or is it something else? Jasper turned slowly. His eyes looked tired, not from the party, but from holding back. It is you, he said. Max blinked. What? It's always been you. I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't even realize I was saying those things out loud. But I meant them. Max's breath caught. I meant them when I said them, Jasper continued, stepping closer. I'm falling for you. I didn't know how to say it when I was awake. Max backed up a step. Then why stop? Why pull away? Because if we kissed, Jasper said softly, it wouldn't be a game to me. Max felt like the floor was tilting. His emotions spiraled. Frustration, confusion, something that tasted too much like hope. I can't do this, he said suddenly, voice hoarse. Jasper's face flickered. Max. But Max was already grabbing his keys. He needed air, space, distance. He left without looking back. Jasper sat on the couch for a long time after. The lights were still dim. The echo of laughter still clung to the furniture. Max's half-empty glass still sat on the table. He laid down eventually, curling into the same spot where Max had been earlier. And softly, brokenly, he whispered to the empty room, Please don't go. Chapter 4: Secrets, Fights, and a Confession in the Dark. Max hadn't even finished knocking before Harper yanked the door open, robe half-tied, hair in chaos. "Oh, absolutely not," she said, stepping aside to let him in. "What did you do?" Max slunk in like a cat that'd been hosed down. "I didn't do anything." "Lie again and I'll throw a sandal at you." She shut the door with a little too much force. "You look like you haven't slept in days." "I haven't." He collapsed onto her couch, burying his face into a pillow that smelled like coconut shampoo and betrayal. "It's complicated. It's always complicated with you." Harper stood over him with crossed arms, her expression a mix of disappointment and protectiveness. She didn't sit. She loomed. "You want love so badly, Max," she said. "But every time someone offers it to you, you run like it's a trap." Max rolled over to face her. "He didn't say he loved me. He said he was falling for me in his sleep. Which is worse, because it means I wasn't supposed to hear it." "You confronted him. He told you it was you. And then what? You ran anyway." "I panicked. You always panic." Max sat up, suddenly defensive. "You don't understand." "I do," Harper snapped. "More than you think. You've been alone for so long that you've made a home out of it. But maybe, just maybe, someone isn't trying to break in. Maybe they're just trying to come in and sit beside you." Max looked away. She softened a little, sitting beside him. "He's not your past, Max, and you're not the boy who got left behind anymore." Max let her words sink in. He didn't reply. Not yet. He just leaned into her shoulder, and for the first time in a long time, let someone hold the weight he didn't know he was carrying. Meanwhile, Jasper was unraveling. He spent the next 2 days pretending he wasn't waiting. That Max's empty room didn't feel like a wound. That every sound wasn't a phantom step down the hallway. He barely slept. Barely ate. He sat at the kitchen table with a mug he didn't drink from and stared at the book Max had thrown onto the counter. How to Tell Your Crush You're a Coward. The irony now felt like a knife. Jasper pressed his fingers to the cover. Then, slowly, as if pulled by a string tied to the heart of something he'd buried long ago, he opened the drawer beside the fridge. Tucked beneath some old receipts and paper clips was a faded photo. Creased at the edges, colors dull with time. It was him. And another man. They were standing in front of a coffee shop, arms around each other. Jasper looked younger then, lighter. He stared at it a moment longer, then tucked it back in the drawer. But the memory flooded in anyway. It had been 4 years ago. His name was Marcus. He was bold, charming, and reckless with love. Jasper had been smitten. They moved in together after 6 months, laughed like it was currency, fought like firestorms, loved like they had nothing else to lose. And then Jasper came out to his family. He remembered the silence on the phone, his mother's voice cold and brittle. "This isn't the son I raised." Marcus held him that night, told him he was brave, but a week later, Marcus left. Said he couldn't handle being someone's lifeboat. That Jasper needed to fix himself before loving someone else. He'd been right, maybe. But it didn't make it hurt less. Since then, Jasper had made himself smaller, safer, kinder to strangers, and cautious with his heart. And then Max had stumbled into his life, sarcastic, stubborn, and full of hidden softness. Jasper hadn't meant to fall, but he had, and now he might have lost the one person who made silence feel like comfort again. 3 days later, Max came back to the apartment to grab clothes. He hadn't planned on seeing Jasper. He'd timed it for mid-morning, assuming he'd be out. But the universe had other ideas. Jasper was standing at the kitchen sink in a black tee and sweatpants, hair a little messy, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. They both froze. Max's heart jumped. "I didn't think you'd be home." "I live here," Jasper said, voice rough. "Right?" Max hesitated. "I just came to get some stuff." Jasper nodded, stepping aside like Max was made of glass. "Sure." Max moved toward his room, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the way Jasper wouldn't meet his eyes. Maybe it was the ache in his own chest. He turned. "You look like hell." Jasper let out a breath. "I feel worse." Silence. Then, "You didn't answer my question." Jasper looked up. Max stepped closer. "Why didn't you tell me? All this time I thought I was making it up, that I was projecting or going insane. You should have said something." Jasper's voice was quiet. "I was scared." "Of what?" Jasper's fingers curled around the edge of the counter. "The last person I loved left when things got hard." Max stared at him. "So you thought I would too?" "I don't know. Jasper admitted. Maybe. That's not fair, Max said, his voice rising. I'm not him. I know that. No, you don't. Because you keep treating me like I'm going to disappear the moment you're vulnerable. Like I can't handle you being messy or scared or human. Jasper flinched, but didn't move. Max stepped closer, frustration burning through his ribs. You don't get to tell me I smell like home in your sleep and then act like I'm a stranger when you're awake. Jasper's eyes finally met his. Something cracked open in them. You're not a stranger, he whispered. You're everything. That's the problem. Max stared at him. The kitchen was dim, only the faint light from the window casting long shadows. The air between them was thick, charged. Max's chest rose and fell rapidly. He stepped closer until there was barely a breath between them and leaned in, not for a kiss, just to rest his forehead against Jasper's. It wasn't romantic. It was raw. Necessary. Jasper closed his eyes. They stood like that in silence, breathing together, sharing warmth and history and all the things neither of them had been able to say. Finally, Max whispered, I'm still here. And Jasper, in a voice so soft it almost broke, replied, I know. Chapter 5, The Night We Stopped Pretending. Things had shifted. Not dramatically. Not in any loud, defining way. It was quiet now, soft. Like the last few notes of a piano song hanging in the air after the keys had been played. Max still brewed the coffee first thing in the morning. Jasper still folded the dish towels too precisely, but everything between them was different. Delicate, like glass right before it broke or bloomed into something better. They hadn't kissed. They hadn't touched. But they didn't walk around each other anymore. They sat a little closer on the couch. Their laughter lingered a little longer. When their fingers brushed, neither of them pulled away first. Max didn't know what they were yet, but he knew what they weren't pretending to be anymore. It was late afternoon when Max looked up from his laptop, eyes dry and itchy from staring at timelines for too long. Jasper was at the kitchen table, scribbling lesson plans in the margins of a book. You busy tonight? Max asked. Jasper looked up. Not if you need me. Max closed his laptop with a click. I could use a second pair of eyes. Wedding edit. The couple sent me the raw vows audio, and I need help picking a song that doesn't make it sound like a commercial for diamonds. Jasper smiled. I'm in. They ordered takeout and settled in front of Max's dual monitor setup. The couple on screen looked absurdly in love. Her dress delicate and layered, his hands shaking slightly as he read his vows. Max didn't speak as the video played. He adjusted the lighting on the bride's face, cut to the groom's shaky laugh, layered the music in slowly, warm strings, subtle piano. Jasper glanced at him once. Then again, it was the third pass through the vows that he saw it. Max's eyes rimmed red, a single tear sliding silently down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. He just kept working. Jasper reached for his hand, resting it lightly on Max's wrist. You okay? Max sniffed once, laughed under his breath. Yeah, sorry. It's the music, and the way she looked at him like she'd waited her whole life to say it. You still believe in this? Jasper asked quietly. Max stared at the frozen frame of the couple on screen. I want to. Jasper nodded like he understood, because he did. They worked for a little while longer in quiet harmony, light from the screen softening the shadows in the room. The air buzzed with something unsaid, something pulsing just beneath the surface. Dinner was lukewarm noodles and steamed dumplings. They ate on the couch, legs folded under them, chopsticks tapping quietly against the takeout containers. Jasper told a story about a student who had accidentally submitted a grocery list instead of their final paper. Max laughed so hard he almost dropped his food. You know, Jasper said after a long beat, I've never felt this kind of quiet with anyone before. Max tilted his head. The good kind? The kind where I don't need to talk just to fill the space. Max looked down, then back up. You're good at that, letting people be quiet. I was always the quiet one, Jasper said. Until you. Max nudged his knee. I'll take that as a compliment, Jasper smiled. It was shy and open and so full of affection it made Max's throat tighten. They cleaned up slowly, neither in a rush. When Jasper leaned over to toss a napkin, his arm brushed Max's side, and neither of them moved. They stood near the couch, faces close. Familiar, but not familiar enough. Jasper's voice dropped to a murmur. I'm not asleep this time. Max's heart thumped. He smirked, lightly, gently. Then say it while you're awake. Jasper reached out. His hand cupped Max's jaw, thumb resting just beneath his cheekbone. "I want you, Max," he said, every word deliberate. "In all the ways I've never wanted anyone else." Max's breath caught, and then he kissed him. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't panicked, it was slow, anchored in weeks of tension, sleepless nights, whispered confessions in the dark. Their mouths met like a promise, soft and warm and open. Jasper's other hand gripped Max's waist, steadying them both. Max's fingers slid up his back, curling in the fabric of his shirt, holding him close like something he never wanted to lose again. They pulled apart only to breathe, to whisper things like, "Are you sure?" and "More than anything." Clothes fell away in pieces. There was laughter, nervous, breathless. Max tripped over his jeans. Jasper kissed the corner of his mouth and said, "You're ridiculous," like it was the sweetest thing anyone had ever done. The couch was too small. The floor was cold. Somehow, they ended up tangled in Max's bed, limbs intertwined, bare skin pressed to bare skin. There was no rush, just mouths exploring slowly, fingers memorizing freckles and scars. Gasps in the quiet. Max whispered, "You're shaking." Jasper answered, "So are you." Their foreheads pressed together, their noses brushed. They moved like they were learning each other, not just bodies, but the places they ached, the places they healed. There was nothing explicit, nothing crude, just skin, warmth, intimacy, and eyes locked together like the rest of the world didn't matter. Later, wrapped in blankets, Max lay with his head on Jasper's shoulder, chest rising and falling in sync with his. Jasper's arms were around him, secure and tender. He murmured, "I'm still scared." Max pressed a kiss to his chest, just above his heart. "Then we'll be scared together." Chapter 6, The Sleep Talker and the Boy Who Stayed. A month had passed. A month of Max brushing his teeth with Jasper behind him, humming tunelessly. A month of shared laundry days, of Jasper stealing Max's hoodies, of Max pretending to be annoyed when he wasn't. A month of late-night laughter, of Jasper's voice murmuring poetry against Max's shoulder, of soft kisses in the morning when they thought the world was still sleeping. It had been a good month. Healing. Slow. Real. And now, Max was sitting in a sun-drenched cafe across from a woman who looked like Jasper with shorter hair and sharper eyes. Lena Lane. Jasper's estranged sister. She had his cheekbones, same warm brown eyes, but she laughed louder than Jasper ever did and ordered waffles for the entire table before Max had even looked at the menu. "He told me about you," she said, sipping from her coffee with a little smirk. "Well, not directly. He never does that. But every story in the last few calls ended with, 'Max said this,' or 'Max made me laugh so hard I cried into my cereal.'" Max flushed. "Did he also tell you I'm the reason he now owns socks with cartoon avocados on them?" "No," she said, grinning, "but that fits the vibe." Jasper returned from the bathroom, sliding into the booth beside Max, his hand naturally finding Max's under the table. He looked at his sister, wary but soft. "How's it going?" he asked. Lena tilted her head. "You didn't tell me he was this cute." "Lena," Jasper muttered. She ignored him and reached over to squeeze Max's hand. "He talks about you like you're sunlight, you know." Max blinked, startled. Jasper didn't deny it. A week later, Max stood backstage at Jasper's college auditorium, watching as the man he loved nervously flipped through pages of a speech. It was part of a literary event. Jasper was giving a public reading of his own short story, something deeply personal about memory and belonging and the spaces we carry in our bodies when we lose our homes. He looked undone. Not in the messy way, but the fragile way. "I can't do this," Jasper whispered, running a hand through his curls. "What if I choke halfway?" Max stepped up behind him. "Then I'll be there." Jasper gave him a tiny smile. "That's sweet, but not exactly a solution." "You don't have to do anything alone anymore," Max said, reaching out, brushing his knuckles gently along Jasper's jaw. The words landed like a net, catching Jasper before he could fall. Later, when Jasper did stumble, his breath catching halfway through a particularly raw paragraph, Max was already moving, already up on stage. He didn't say anything, just took Jasper's hand and stood beside him. Jasper finished the story with Max's fingers wrapped around his own, voice stronger than before. The applause at the end wasn't just for the story. It was for the two of them, undeniably together, impossibly real. What followed was a month of montages. Sunday mornings filled with mild coffee wars, Max insisting on dark roast, Jasper sneaking cinnamon into the pot. Max filming Jasper snoring, narrating dramatically in fake accents, sending him voice notes labeled evidence of your crimes. They fell asleep tangled up in each other like roots, their limbs finding familiar places with practiced ease. Jasper mumbled in his sleep sometimes, but it was different now. Lighter, safer. Max started keeping a little log on his phone. Max, you made the sun nervous. Jasper, 2:43 a.m. If you ever leave, take the bed. It smells like you. They lived like a secret, only they understood. And then Harper and Felix decided to blow the secret wide open. Max opened the apartment door on a Tuesday night to find a candlelit table in the living room, that fairy lights strung haphazardly across the ceiling, and a homemade banner that read, "Happy Not Date Anniversary." Felix stood behind the couch, champagne flute in hand. 1 month ago, you two emotionally combusted and still somehow didn't explode. This calls for celebration. Harper danced past him in a sparkly top. You're welcome, by the way. You're both insane, Max said, laughing. But you love us, Harper said, planting a kiss on his cheek. Now sit down. Jasper has something to give you. Max turned, heart skipping. Jasper looked nervous again, but this was a different kind of nervous. This was the kind that came with tiny boxes and long-held breath. He handed Max a little wrapped package. Inside was a keychain, handmade, carved wood, Max's name etched in looping script across a tiny sliver of cherry wood. Jasper cleared his throat. So you know it's always you. Max couldn't speak. He didn't need to. He leaned in, kissed Jasper hard and slow and sweet in front of everyone, and the apartment erupted in cheers and whoops and Felix yelling, "Finally!" That night, their room was quiet, lit only by the faint golden glow of the hallway. Max lay on his side, Jasper curled around him from behind, their legs tangled beneath the sheets. The air smelled like clean laundry and warmth and something Max couldn't name but never wanted to live without again. You still talk in your sleep. Max whispered into the dark. Jasper chuckled against his shoulder. Good. He kissed the back of Max's neck, voice low and teasing. Means I don't have to hold anything back. Max smiled, eyes closing, heart full. They lay there like that, breaths synced, no masks between them anymore. The boy in his dreams had my name, and now the boy in my arms does too.